Ape vs. Mecha Ape is an insane movie about a giant ape trying to stop a giant robot ape from nuking Chicago. It's basically a discount version of the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, but if it was more unhinged in every possible way. It was created by The Asylum, a film company that produces low-budget rip-offs of other popular movies, and is also responsible for the creation of classic movies like Transmorphers, Plane vs. Volcano, and The Shark Side of the Moon. Ape vs. Mecha Ape is a masterpiece of film that has everything you could want, all packed into 90 minutes of cinematic perfection. There's so much wrong with this movie, from the terrible CGI to the absolute insanity that is the story, that it transforms into an absolute joy to watch. So let's start off right from the beginning. The movie begins with an insanely goofy intro that shows Ape attacking a military base before all his skin falls off after he gets hit by a rocket. This leads to the incredible reveal that it was actually Mecha Ape the whole time, and he uses his machine gun to kill 5 of the soldiers at the base with some insane accuracy, since they all instantly collapse once he starts shooting. Apparently, Mecha Ape had beef with those guys specifically, since he hits a quick emote on them and decides not to kill anyone else before being interrupted by the title card. We cut to a group of people all monitoring the real Ape, where we learn there's been a perimeter breach and the Ape's vitals are spiking. Apparently, Ape is upset because some random guy managed to fly a drone into his forest. Somehow this random drone interaction made Ape so upset that he might instantly die, so they need to send a doctor in to ensure he stays alive. Keep in mind, later in the movie he's constantly fighting and getting shot, but that's apparently not enough to make him anywhere near this angry. Here we get the grand reveal that Ape just got back from space and that he's also somehow part alien. Now we meet the person who is flying the drone, the most useless character in the entire movie, Stupid Head. Unluckily for us, they decide to release him with just a warning so that he can keep being useless throughout the rest of the movie. They send out Dr. Sloan, who knew Ape before he became big, and she uses purple lights to calm him down. Since he must really like purple, he calms down instantly, and she tries to get him to play a game with her. However, she didn't realize that Ape was entering his Sigma phase, and he's too busy mewing to play silly games anymore. She then shines a green light to show how sad she is about leaving soon, and gets called to talk to her boss about Mecha Ape. Next, we see Dr. Sloan explaining Mecha Ape to the military, since apparently her ape expertise allowed her to create a giant robot ape. They explained that the attack at the beginning of the movie was on a factory that had been creating chemical weapons, and was apparently heavily guarded before Mecha Ape showed up, killed 5 guards, and emoted. The military then decides they want to take Ape as Pentagon property, and we learn that he apparently went on a rampage through Washington, D.C. before the movie started. The general doesn't want a giant ape destroying cities for some reason, so he ends up deciding to take Ape away and keep him in a secure facility. Next, the military discovers an old nuclear warhead in the ocean, and they take it to a secure facility to be destroyed. Somehow, the villains of the movie are able to find out the exact location of the nuke and decide to travel to the United States where it's being kept. Once they arrive there, they reveal that the plan is to use the Mecha Ape in order to get access to the nuclear weapon. Apparently, the Mecha Ape happened to be traveling almost directly above the facility that the nuke is being kept in, and they're somehow able to hack into it easily. So I guess the fact it was so easy to hack means the general doesn't care about giant mechanical apes destroying cities, and only cares when living apes do it. They also somehow managed to lose track of the giant robot ape, so that means they didn't even bother adding a way to find its location. Then Stupid Head shows up back at the base to try and talk with the main scientist that was in charge of studying Ape. Apparently, just the mention of plasma suppressors is enough to get a meeting with the head scientist at the program. So they meet up to talk, despite the fact that he literally tried to spy on Ape earlier that day. At this point, we learn that in the previous movie, Ape vs. Monster, Ape apparently fought a giant lizard in Washington, D.C., and destroyed most of the city in the process. This is only more evidence that the general specifically hates ape-related city destruction, since he apparently would have preferred that the lizard just destroyed the city completely. Stupidhead explains that he believes Ape's alien DNA will go dormant at some point, although he has literally zero evidence for his theory. He thinks the ape is infected with genius alien DNA that knows how to shut down in order to avoid being attacked with an ape, and it could apparently just decide to activate itself at any point. Luckily, the DNA must not know it has that ability either, because this is never mentioned again throughout the rest of the movie. Next, we see that the team of hackers have inexplicably managed to sneak a Roomba into the secure government base, and use it to map out the entire facility without anyone noticing it. There's also apparently only 8 guards patrolling the building, even though it's literally being delivered a nuke. This is clear proof that the general doesn't care at all about cities being destroyed unless they're specifically caused by a giant ape. For some reason, this facility isn't going into lockdown until the nuke actually arrives, so that allows the hackers to sneak in before it fully locks down. Now we cut to Stupid Head, where he's living up to his name by shining a flashlight into his eyes and being surprised that it's bright. Then we cut back to the actual movie, where the hacker group decides to activate Mecha Ape, and he rises up out of the sand he was apparently hiding in. They also say that they use the sand dunes in order to cushion the Mecha Ape's fall, which is an insane plan considering how little sand there is on the island. In order to do this successfully, they would have needed to predict exactly how long it would take for Mecha Ape to destroy the plane, so that he somehow lands within this tiny strip of sand. The sand he fell into was directly next to the wreckage from the plane, which was actively being searched by the military. So either they somehow missed the giant robotic ape that was right next to them, or he was fully hidden in the sand after falling into it. Anyway, we cut back to the hackers already standing inside the secure facility, since they apparently managed to sneak inside the heavily guarded building off screen before it went into lockdown. Then we see Mecha Ape beginning its journey towards the nuke, when it decides to go out of its way to knock over this random person's house and completely deletes it with a single punch. The general is very upset about the Mecha Ape's rampage. You can tell how angry he is because he slaps his desk 3 whole times. Apparently, since the Mecha Ape started his rampage, he somehow only injured 34 people and completely avoided killing anyone, despite the fact that he's literally walking around obliterating entire houses the whole time. Sloan comes up with a plan to stop Mecha Ape, which involves getting on board and using the control panel inside to shut him down. Luckily for her, Mecha Ape is casually strolling down the street by the time she catches up to him, so she's able to easily jump onto his back and get inside. She manages to make her way to the control panel, where she finally realizes that someone hacked Mecha Ape. I guess before this she thought Mecha Ape randomly decided to go take a stroll, since him being hacked was the only explanation the whole time. Sloan is apparently locked out from editing Mecha Ape's programming, which means there's obviously no other way to stop him from the inside. Back with the hacker group, they've easily managed to kill the only 4 guards who are in charge of guarding the nuke, since that obviously isn't something worth protecting. The military also apparently has no way to stop the Mecha Ape, which means it's somehow stronger than every other weapon they have access to. This forces them to send in Ape, since he's apparently stronger than the entirety of the US military, because big. We go back to Stupid Head and the scientists, where they see military helicopters and realize that they must be coming to get Ape. Then we cut back to Sloan, where she finally decides to do something useful and deactivate some of the Mecha Ape's weapons from within. The hackers realize that they've lost use of 3 of Mecha Ape's weapon systems, which is apparently enough to significantly damage its firepower. They've already managed to secure the nuke, and they take it to a place where Mecha Ape will be able to reach it. At this point, we get this incredible scene.
Hurry! Do it quickly! Get out of the way! I'm bringing the arm down!
First of all, what is this lady doing? She's just randomly standing in the back, aiming at the ceiling and silently yelling. Anyway, the important thing is that all the characters are standing directly next to the nuke when he completely smashes the building they're standing inside, but somehow they aren't harmed in the slightest. Look at this, the entire building is destroyed, but somehow the area around the nuke is completely free of rubble, and they inexplicably survive standing inside it while it's being smashed. This does help to explain how everyone else has survived its rampage so far, since apparently standing inside buildings while Mecha Ape destroys them is completely safe. The new question is how Mecha Ape even managed to injure 34 people in the first place, if smashing a building on top of people doesn't even hurt them in the slightest. From this point on, literally half the movie is just Sloan falling over repeatedly inside Mecha Ape, and basically every other scene from here is just her stumbling around aimlessly. The military shows up in order to get Ape, so he can be brought to the fight against Mecha Ape, and when they get there, he's boogieing down, although he still needs to practice his moves some more. The military must have been impressed by his dancing, though, since they decided to knock him out and kidnap him. Apparently, they decided not to use the same strategy in the previous movie when he was running around destroying cities with a lizard, even though they apparently just needed to hit him with the sedative. Next, the hackers somehow managed to turn Mecha Ape's weapon systems back on, and they eventually realize that Sloan is still inside him. They managed to lock Sloan out from any control panels that are within Mecha Ape, which prevents her from being able to deactivate the weapons again. Sloan could still attempt to manually deactivate the CPUs, but if they become disconnected from the system at any point, the Mecha Ape's failsafe will cause it to launch all the weapon systems. That's genuinely the stupidest failsafe of all time. Apparently, when they were creating Mecha Ape, someone decided that a CPU disconnecting should launch all the weapons and destroy everything in the immediate area for literally no reason. In the meantime, Sloan is somehow able to knock off a small part of the Mecha Ape and create a small hole in its leg. Apparently, the giant war robot that can tank missiles is easily broken apart by someone lightly hitting it with their hand. There was literally no reason for her to make this hole either, since she immediately says that her plan is to shut down the power. At this point, the military decides to drop Ape in the middle of a random field, and then they just leave him there. Sloan calls one of the officers in the military to let them know about the nuke that's being attached to Mecha Ape, but for some reason the officer is completely unable to hear anything Sloan says because Mecha Ape is apparently too loud. This wasn't an issue at all when Sloan was talking on the phone earlier, and also isn't an issue later in the movie, so this officer must just have really bad hearing. Sloan ends up hanging up on her in order to go back to her scheduled stumbling around inside Mecha Ape. Now Mecha Ape and Ape finally end up running into each other again, and we get treated to the greatest fight in cinematic history. It starts out strong, with Mecha Ape shooting 2 missiles at Ape that both manage to miss somehow before a third missile appears out of nowhere and hits Ape head on. At this point, I'd like to remind you that Mecha Ape is apparently an extremely dangerous military super weapon, but it manages to miss a giant stationary target with both the missiles it fires. The only missile that actually connected was the one that spawned in out of nowhere, and it doesn't even hurt Ape in the slightest. The fight only gets more intense from here, when Mecha Ape grabs Ape by the neck and moves him into a nearby windmill blade. Since Ape apparently doesn't feel like fighting back, he just sits there and gets repeatedly bumped in the head by the windmill blades. Eventually, Ape does get tired of getting hit by the windmill and easily manages to break out of Mecha Ape's grip. However, this makes Mecha Ape start using its ranged weaponry again, but somehow with even worse aim this time. At the beginning of the movie, it was able to instantly take out 5 soldiers using its machine gun without missing a single shot. But apparently hitting a giant ape is much more difficult, and it somehow misses every shot on Ape except one. By the way, in between each of these clips, there's like 10 seconds of Sloan stumbling around inside Mecha Ape doing absolutely nothing. At least until this point, where she starts cutting some of the wiring inside Mecha Ape, which could possibly do real damage to him. Those were apparently the extremely important wires that stopped Mecha Ape's eyes from turning red, but now that she's cut them, he's forced to have red eyes. For some reason, Sloan's master plan was to change the eyes to red to make Ape stop fighting, since he knows that red means stop. It ends up working, and Ape walks away from Mecha Ape, allowing it to begin to travel towards Chicago. Once the fight's over, Sloan calls the military officer who couldn't hear her earlier. Apparently, her hearing improved significantly over the course of the last 2 minutes, and Sloan relays the information about the nuclear missile that Mecha Ape is taking towards the city. They come up with the brilliant plan of trying to get rid of the nuke by throwing it into a giant hole in the middle of Chicago. Now, immediately after the phone call, they say that Ape has been sighted in 3 different states, which means he somehow managed to travel hundreds of miles over the last few minutes. During their discussion about Ape's location, we're treated to this interaction.
You can't just lose a giant ape.
Unless he's dead.
What are you talking about? He's literally a giant ape. Unless his body completely disappears when he dies, I don't think it would be very difficult to find him. Anyway, Sloan finally manages to start shutting down the power to Mecha Ape, but realizes that she won't be able to fully drain its power before it manages to reach Chicago. If only she'd started powering him down sooner instead of trying to make his eyes glow red. She calls this lady, who I'll be calling Car Girl from now on, since almost every scene that she appears in is just her driving around aimlessly. For some reason, Sloan thinks that Ape is searching for Mecha Ape to fight him again, even though she literally just used the red lights to send him away. Sloan decides to go outside onto Mecha Ape's maintenance deck, which is apparently something he has, but the hatch door is stuck, so she's unable to escape. Car Lady doesn't want her to go along with the plan of getting Ape to stop Mecha Ape, since she thinks it's too dangerous without an escape. Apparently, she thinks the better plan would be to wait until it reaches the city so that Sloan gets blown up by the nuke instead. But for some reason, she's unable to convince her that that's clearly the superior strategy. Stupid Head, along with the scientist and Car Lady, collectively decide that for some reason, the best course of action is to sedate Ape by using a plane to drop a highly concentrated sedative on him. This is literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why are you trying to sedate the only thing with the chance to stop Mecha Ape from destroying an entire city? Sloane finally decides to cut some more wires, but for some reason she keeps only cutting the wires that change the color of Mecha Ape's eyes. Fortunately, Ape instantly reappears on the scene with a graceful leap onto a building, where Mecha Ape immediately tries to shoot 2 missiles at him again. It has the exact same outcome as last time, where both missiles somehow miss completely, but luckily this time Mecha Ape isn't able to summon a third one out of nowhere. For some reason, Sloane randomly starts yelling about how happy she is that Ape is winning the fight, even though all we see Ape do is standing on buildings and getting shot at.
What are you aiming at?
Once again, we cut away from all the intense action to Stupid Head, Scientist, and Car Lady, where they're all flying towards the city in a plane to enact their plan. Stupid Head further proves his name when he explains that he learned to fly a plane so that he could get closer to aliens in order to study them. That's literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The aliens are presumably living on a different planet from them, so I'm pretty confident that a plane wouldn't be able to get anywhere near them. Relative to the distance between planets, an airplane going up would do absolutely nothing to get you closer. Now we go back to the intense fight between Ape and Mecha Ape, where Mecha Ape is just casually walking down the street and Ape is emoting on a rooftop. Mecha Ape fires another missile at Ape and completely obliterates the building Ape was standing on, causing him to fall down. Now they're finally fighting face to face again, and Ape gets hit with this insane wind-up punch from Mecha Ape before he starts to hit some more emotes on him. Apparently Mecha Ape forgot it was supposed to be in a fight, since Ape just runs up and pushes him over with absolutely no resistance of any kind. For some reason, that slight shove makes Sloane think Ape has gone crazy, and she calls Car Girl to explain what's happening in the fight. She also makes the claim that she can't get Ape to stop smashing Mecha Ape, despite the fact that she literally hasn't even tried to make him stop. She eventually just decides to unplug the weapon CPUs, which will cause all Mecha Ape's weapons to launch. Apparently though, launching all Mecha Ape's weapons just means it fires like 6 missiles, which is apparently enough to stop Ape, even though they were barely hurting him at all earlier. It's at this exact moment that Stupid Head's plane reaches the city, where they see that Ape is already starting to recover from all the weapons being fired at him. For some reason, they're surprised by that, even though he's literally been tanking missiles the entire movie. Luckily though, they got there at just the right moment to knock Ape out before he starts destroying Mecha Ape, which could accidentally cause the nuke to trigger. But unluckily, Stupid Head is the person in control of releasing the gas, and he drops it too late and somehow causes them to completely miss Ape. I want to remind you at this point that literally a quarter of the movie focuses on these characters, and they contribute absolutely nothing whatsoever to the actual story. We go back to the actual fight, where Ape is apparently doing serious damage to Mecha Ape, even though it looks a lot more like he's just trying to show off his dance moves again. Sloane does more of her typical stumbling around inside Mecha Ape, which she's been doing constantly ever since the fight started. We spend more time watching her stumble around aimlessly than we do actually watching any fighting happen. But she finally manages to escape the Mecha Ape by using the maintenance hatch that was apparently broken before. Even though she thought the hatch was completely broken like 5 minutes ago, she's easily able to escape just by hitting it with her hand a bit. This is the exact same technique she used to break off the section of Mecha Ape's leg earlier, so she's basically confirmed to have super strength at this point. Somehow, Stupid Head, Scientist, and Car Lady all manage to show up back in the city on foot, just so that they can immediately run away once Mecha Ape starts fighting again. Mecha Ape then starts whacking Ape in the head a couple times with the car, before Ape just decides to rip its arm off and start whacking him with it, which is apparently enough to completely shut down Mecha Ape. At this point, Sloane starts trying to convince Ape to play a game with her, since she obviously forgot that Ape already entered his Sigma phase. Luckily for her though, Ape ends up going along with the game in order to stop her from embarrassing herself, and she convinces him to toss Mecha Ape into a giant hole in the middle of Chicago. I've heard Big Hole is nice this time of year, so it was very kind of Ape to help Mecha Ape make the visit. Anyway, the nuke ends up going off while Mecha Ape is falling into the hole, but it apparently does 0 damage to the surrounding area and is completely contained by the big hole. The nuke literally explodes directly behind Ape, but he is somehow completely unharmed, so he emotes to assert dominance. Also, Big Hole is apparently really strong, since it somehow managed to completely stop all of the radioactive fallout from the nuclear missile that went off in the middle of the city. Stupid Head, Scientist, and Car Lady all appear back on the scene, having succeeded in their mission of being completely useless throughout the entire movie. Then the characters apparently unlock teleportation abilities, since the next scene takes place in a random parking lot, even though they're clearly supposed to happen consecutively. Then we cut to the hackers sitting on a plane that will take them back to their home country, where they're discussing possible steps to survive after their failure. When out of nowhere, Ape appears and grabs their plane off the runway. They all end up getting arrested since Ape is there, and they don't want to get emoted on because his moves would end their career. The movie finally ends with Ape winning his own private island from Mr. Beast, and he starts running around goofily. This movie is truly a one-of-a-kind experience. I've never seen a movie with a concept this insane. A giant ape trying to stop a giant robot ape from nuking Chicago is an absolutely wild plotline, and the fact that the solution to this issue is a big hole for the nuke is absolutely hilarious. This movie could have actually been incredible if it wasn't for the massive amount of filler throughout the entire runtime, especially with Stupid Head's subplot taking up a significant portion of the movie and amounting to less than nothing. There's an absurd amount of useless scenes of someone stumbling around, talking on the phone, or driving somewhere. Obviously, this is exactly what I'd expect from an Asylum movie, since this movie was probably made with $5 and some popsicle sticks for a budget. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye!